The famous saying is that money can't buy you everything. Love, power, talent, skills. But what if there was a way to get something that you desperately wanted? Well, here in Clarksdale, Mississippi, Robert Johnson found a unique way to do just that. He sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads.
Welcome back to Abnormal Voyages, adventurers. Strap yourselves in for a musical cemetery safari.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
Robert Johnson is considered one of the greatest and most influential blues players of all time. However, to reach this status, supposedly, Robert had to sell his soul to the devil. The story goes that as a young man, Robert wanted nothing more than to be an expert at the blues. So he was told to take his guitar and head out to the crossroads at midnight. Once he got there, he ran into the devil himself. The devil took his guitar, tuned it just right and played a few songs, then handed the guitar back to Robert. And, in exchange for his soul, Robert was now a master at the instrument. Now, I'm not sure if he actually sold his soul or not, but what's undeniable is that he made a massive impact on the world of Delta blues. Unfortunately, Robert wasn't around very long to share his musical talents with everyone, living only to the age of 27 and ultimately having only 29 songs recorded. A lot of mystery surrounds Robert Johnson, including how he died. The most likely theories is that he was either killed by syphilis or poisoning. Both two pretty brutal ways to go. There was a bit of controversy over where his final resting place was, but after lots of research, it was determined that the Little Zion Church in Greenwood, Mississippi, is where this blues legend rests now. Blues fans from all over the world are welcome to come here and pay their respects, as well as visit the nearby crossroads in Clarksdale, Mississippi. We may never know if his soul was actually traded or not, but I think it's safe to say that whatever he did trade for his musical prowess was certainly well worth it. The next stop on our musical cemetery safari brings us to St. Louis, Missouri, at the Belle Reve Heritage Gardens, where we find the final resting place of Chuck Berry. With incredible songs such as Johnny Be Good, and cited as inspiration to greats such as Elvis, Jimi Hendrix, and the Beatles, Chuck Berry has been called the founding father of rock and roll. On Chuck Berry, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame comments, "While no individual can be said to have invented rock and roll, Chuck Berry comes the closest of any single figure to being the one who put all the essential pieces together. It was his particular genius to graft country and western guitar licks onto a rhythm and blues chassis in his very first single, Maybelline." Chuck Berry passed away in 2017 of cardiac arrest. Our next musical icons are the Abbott Brothers, located in Arlington, Texas, at Moore Memorial Gardens. Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell are both most known for being together in the group Pantera. Vinnie kept the beat with his hardcore drumming, while Darrell shredded it up with his guitar. Dimebag Darrell passed away in 2004 when a fan assassinated him on stage during a concert. Vinnie Paul passed away in 2018 due to coronary artery disease. Both brothers loomed large in the world of heavy rock metal and are both very much missed. Not too far away from the Abbott Brothers, we stay in Dallas, Texas, to head to Laurel Land Memorial Park, where we find the final resting spot of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Vaughan rose to fame as the frontman of Double Trouble, and with hits such as Cold Shot and Pride and Joy, he quickly became one of the greatest and most well-renowned guitar players of all time. For our final section of this cemetery safari, we head to Gillsburg, Mississippi, where on October 20th, 1977, a plane crashed, containing one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Known for their fantastic southern rock, as well as numerous hit songs such as Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird, Lynyrd Skynyrd was just hitting their peak of popularity before the incident. The group was flying from Greenville, South Carolina to Baton Rouge, Louisiana on their tour. Unfortunately, right before they had managed to make it to Louisiana, their plane began losing fuel and forced them to a crash landing in the middle of the swampy area of Mississippi. Many members of the band would receive several injuries from this crash, and ultimately, the two pilots, as well as Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, and the assistant road manager Dean Kilpatrick, would unfortunately lose their lives in the crash. Few rock groups, even to this day, had the kind of lasting impact through their music that Lynyrd Skynyrd managed to leave behind. Though it has been decades since that fateful night back in 1977, fans still flock to Lynyrd Skynyrd, enjoying their music, and in tribute to that, have left a beautiful memorial here right near the site where the plane crashed. It's actually very impressive how much love and detail went into this monument that just kind of springs up out of the woods. There's nothing else nearby, and then you come across these gorgeous stones. It's really stunning to see this in person. If you're ever around this area, I highly suggest you stop to check it out. We wanted to get a little more insight on what it was actually like that fateful evening in 1977 when the plane went down. So we ran into Mr. Jamie Wall, who was the first responder on site that fateful October evening.
We are actually here with Mr. Jamie Wall, who was one of the, or actually the very first responder, correct, to the location when the crash actually happened. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Nice meeting you.
Yes, and I'd love to hear your story. What happened that night?
Well, I was on a volunteer fire department in Gillsburg, and a friend of mine on the fire department called me and said a plane had crashed between Magnolia and Gillsburg, and that we was going to call the fire department out and go looking for the plane. Nobody knew where it was. I didn't even ask how big a plane. All afternoon I saw a small plane putting out ant poison back in them days. I thought it crashed.
Okay.
So I left my house, came down the main highway here, and I could see a helicopter behind us here at 800 yards. And I said, that plane crashed under a helicopter. The helicopter done found it. It was sitting there hovering.
Like having their light on it?
Had their light on it. It was right before dark, but you could see it, you could see the light. So I stopped at this farmhouse down here to tell them I was going to cross their pasture to go to it.
Okay.
There was 3 survivors had already walked the crash to his house. Artemis Pyle, Mark Franken, and one named Kenyon. And they were trying to run them off. And they didn't believe they were survivors. And I'm confused. I'm looking for one plane, one little person, and here's 3 telling me there's more people down there. And I told the farmer, Mr. Moat, and them, I said, look, they telling you the truth. If you step out and look here, you can see this helicopter sitting under that plane's up under that helicopter. And I said, I'm telling you now, I was a volunteer deputy sheriff and a volunteer fireman. I'm going to cross your field and go to it. And I've got a radio in my truck, and I'm already called help, and people are coming. I said, give these people help, let them use the phone or whatever. But when I crossed the field and got to the woods, it's almost getting dark in the field, but it's dark in the woods. When I got out, you had to cross a creek about this deep, waist deep. Well, when I walked up the plane, the first person I saw was the pilot. The plane's upside down. It's then come in through the trees, sheared the wings off, hit the ground and twisted, and the front's upside down, the back of it's upright. And it hit a tree and bent. It killed 2 pilots and 4 people right behind it.
So right there, that kind of front section?
I believe if it hadn't hit the tree, nobody would have died.
Wow.
They'd all died on impact right there. The people, to me, that were hurt real bad were in the twist, where the plane had twisted. And the first person I saw was the pilot. I knew I couldn't help him, but I'm circling the plane. I'm looking for gas and wings.
Sure.
Since I can't find the gas and wings, I feel safe. There ain't gonna be no fire. But while I'm circling the plane, I stumble on 2 people. One was Paul Welch, and one was Steve Lawyer. I took 2 hunting coats. I covered them up with them hunting coats and told them help was coming. And there was a 3rd person outside the plane, Gene Odom. I didn't see him. And then there was a person in the back of the plane. Nobody would answer me. But you got to understand, there's a helicopter.
Really loud above you.
And it's dark, and you're looking at the spotlight, and I had a flashlight. But they didn't answer me in the back. I knew the rest of the people were in that fuselage. And it wasn't no door or windows, upside down. There's a big crack, ragged metal. And I knew if I went up there, they'd be there. But for some reason, I climbed up on top looking for a better way in. Now, the top of the plane is actually the bottom. It's upside down.
Yeah.
So I'm walking on the belly of the plane, and it's smooth, but there's a crack right there. For some reason, I poked my hand in that crack where some leaves and dirt was, and I poked the man in the face. He's alive.
Oh.
His name is Mark Howard. He lives in Pasadena, Texas now. He was an electrician. He's alive. I'm telling him help's coming. I said, close your eyes. I had a hatchet. I took a hatchet that night with me for some reason. I took that hatchet to make a hole.
Try to help him get out?
When I got the hole big enough to get him out, somebody tapped me on the shoulder. It was Ben Lane on the highway patrolman. He said, Jamie, help's coming. And when I looked down, I could see 10 or 8 people have come. At that time, I never noticed anybody had walked up there. It was people below me.
Well, because you were so intent on getting that hole and helping grab them out.
When I got ready to pull the man out, I said, mister, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I know this is going to hurt. I said, all I want to tell you to do is grit your teeth. But I'm going to pull you out of that hole. And I reached in his arm and pulled him out. And when I slid him down the plane to some people, I slid him down to the guy that called me on the phone, Stuart Hemphill. He had got there by then. Then I got up in the fuselage and helped get people out. Wayne Easy, the man that donated this land, he was the second person. He was already up in the fuselage. I had 4 brothers there that night getting people out.
Wow.
I was up in the plane with me and my oldest brother, and one of my younger brothers was on the ground. We was handing them out the plane to them.
How long would you say it took to get everybody out?
Several hours.
So it was an all-night kind of...
Well, we had people out of the plane, I feel sure, about 2 o'clock.
Wow.
Or earlier. I wasn't keeping up time, don't know who was in the plane. All I know, after I got out of the plane, I'm tired. And I know people were still there. They hadn't took nobody off. We didn't have no stretchers.
And y'all were off in that swamp where you said it was way up? And...
Well, the creek was wet. Where we walked around was just kind of muddy and damp.
Okay, so that's a little better at least.
Yeah.
But I'm sure getting people out of there was, oof.
But somebody mentioned that we need stretchers. And when they did, the guy next to me said, I got stretchers. And I didn't even realize the guy standing beside me was from the helicopter. He had the helmet on and a microphone.
Okay.
And I didn't know it. But there was 3 helicopters there.
Oh, wow.
I always thought for years there was only 2. Because there was one up above us the whole time, and this guy took us across the creek out in the field, and he had a helicopter out there with stretchers on it. He gave us stretchers, and we toted them back in there, started toting people out. Actually, the ambulances couldn't get there across the field, so we were putting people in the back of pickup trucks.
Just trying to get them out to the
We had a
hospitals.
local farmer here bought a truck, and there was some hay in the back, and we was laying them up in the back of it.
Wow.
We was taking them to the hospital and everything, or either bringing them out to the road and then putting them in the ambulance.
Right, just trying to get them out of that
Some
area.
of them went all the way to the hospital in the pickup truck.
Wow. That's incredible. So were you a fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd before this happened? Did you know anything about him, or?
I've heard of Leonard Skynyrd, and I knew the song Sweet Home Alabama.
That's one of the best ones.
I was a big Elvis fan. I ain't gonna lie, I was big. And after we had got everybody off the plane, a news reporter come up through her, which she had the camera with her, but I knew her, Nita Labrador from Baton Rouge, Channel 9. I watched her in the evening, so I knew who she was, and I said, you're running late. She said, where's the plane crash? I said, right there under that helicopter across that creek. Well, she hit the creek, cameraman right behind her, I waded the creek behind her. She told, she said, I need to do an interview. I said, go talk to that guy in that white hat who was one of my brothers. He was just a constable and a deputy sheriff and a volunteer firefighter.
Oh, wow.
And he was also commander of the National Guard here. And she went to talk to him, and he said, no, you go back and talk to him. He's the first one here. So when she come back to me, I wouldn't tell her my name. I said, it ain't important. She said, well, do you know who's on the plane? I said, well, here's a rock and roll group. She said, it's Leonard Skynyrd. And I said, well, which one was him? That tells you how much I knew about Leonard Skynyrd.
Hey, but you were still doing your job, doing the important work there.
So that's when I found out who it was, and she explained to me who Leonard Skynyrd was, the name of the band. She told me about Ronnie Van Zant. But I knew the song Sweet Home Alabama.
So you still had that little connection, you're like, oh. Well, I'm glad you were there and able to, those few extra minutes of you being the first one could have meant the difference of life and death for some of those people.
Well, I think God told me to help Mark Howard. Because, like I say, he didn't know how long he'd have been up there while we was up in that fuselage.
Yeah.
Nobody, because he's between the floor and the belly of the plane.
Oof.
And you can't see him from the inside the plane. He's up under he's like the ceiling, but it's the floor.
Yeah. And being injured, being stuck up there, who knows how that might have turned out.
And like I say, I just happened to walk up and poke my hand. I didn't see him. I put my hand in the crack, just playing with the dirt. I done already got on my knees once and prayed to God, help me. And I was down there again, really, telling him, give me strength. And I knew when I went up to the fuselage what I was on fire.
Yeah, well, I think God was definitely directing you that night. It sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. I appreciate it so much. God bless. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After hearing the first-person account and seeing the beautiful memorial at the crash site, we of course had to come and pay respects to where they're actually buried.
First we have Ronnie Van Zant. He is here in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Jacksonville Memory Garden, where he was buried with his signature top hat and his guitar. A bench nearby has a poem on it written by his friend Charlie Daniels. A brief candle, both ends burning, an endless smile, a bus wheel turning, a friend to share the lonesome times, a handshake and a sip of wine. So say it loud and let it ring, we are all a part of everything. The future, present, and the past. Fly on, proud bird, you're free at last. And then located nearby is the final resting spot of Steve Gaines, who also perished in the plane crash that night. Behind Steve, a little further back, you'll find the spot of Cassie Gaines, his sister, who also was there in the plane crash and passed away, and her parents, who later joined her.
Now, I know we just showed you Ronnie Van Zant's grave. However, that was his original burial location. Due to people unfortunately desecrating where he was buried and trying to dig up his casket, he was moved here to Riverside Memorial, which is still in Jacksonville, but a little bit away from that one. So this is his current spot of resting.
As you can see, not quite as elaborate a resting spot as the first one, but this area provided much more security, and the family felt safer with him here, and actually had his casket encased in cement, just to be sure that nobody was ever again going to be able to vandalize him, as in the original one. Ronnie Van Zant was also not alone at this new cemetery, as right across from him is buried Leon Wilkinson, who was of course in Lynyrd Skynyrd with him. He didn't perish during the plane crash, but when his time came, his family felt it appropriate for him to be laid here. And also nearby, we have the grave of Billy Powell, the keyboardist for Leonard Skynyrd. Billy also survived the crash, but passed away of a heart attack in 2009. Last but certainly not least, at Riverside Memorial Park, we have the resting spot of Alan Collins, another member of Leonard Skynyrd, who passed away in 1990 of pneumonia. He's a little further away from the rest, but in spirit, I like to think they're all still rocking out together.
And as a last bonus treat to wrap up our Leonard Skynyrd memorial, we have the grave of Lynyrd Skynyrd, who was the coach of the band members back when they were in high school, who they actually named the band after. He's right over here.
Leonard Skynyrd was the gym coach that several of the original members of Leonard Skynyrd had while in school. They thought it would be funny to name their band after him. I'm sure he never thought that one of the greatest southern rock bands would come from his name. Well, thanks for tagging along on this cemetery safari. My name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. watching.